The sound of screaming men and shattering steel echoes from the mountain pass. The grand coalition of warlords, an army of hundreds of thousands gathered to destroy a tyrant, is in full panicked retreat. Their finest champions lie dead or wounded. Their formations are broken. Their soldiers are cowering in terror. The source of this terror is not an army. It is a single, seemingly invincible warrior who sits atop a magnificent red horse. He is a tall, imposing general in magnificent beast-like armor, wielding a massive halberd known as the Sky Piercer. This is Lu Bu, the god of war. He is a demon on the battlefield, an unstoppable force of nature that has single-handedly halted the warlords' grand crusade. From a hill in the distance, the coalition's leaders, the aristocratic Yuan Shao and the pragmatic Cao Cao, watch in horror. Their alliance, their dream of restoring the Han, is being shattered by one man.
This warrior was the weapon. The hand that aimed him belonged to a monster of even greater ambition, Dong Zhuo. To understand how this one tyrant could plunge the empire into chaos and force this grand alliance into existence, we must look to the moment he first seized the capital and took the emperor himself hostage. This is the story of the coalition of warlords, a war of legendary duels, epic betrayals, and apocalyptic destruction. This is the story of the first true war of the Three Kingdoms.
The capital, Luoyang, was a hollow prize, its government shattered by the Yellow Turban Rebellion. As we've explored, the Han Dynasty was a broken institution, a rotting foundation of corruption and greed. In the final days, the court turned on itself. The Grand Marshal He Jin was assassinated by the eunuchs, and in response, the general Yuan Shao unleashed his army, massacring the eunuchs in a palace bloodbath. And into this perfect power vacuum rode Dong Zhuo. As we explored in our previous episode, Dong Zhuo's brutal campaigns on the frontier had forged him into a survivor and a predator. Hardened by decades of savage warfare in the Liang Province Rebellion, he was not a statesman, he was a conqueror. He arrived in Luoyang, summoned by a dead man, and found a city in flames and a government without a head. With his own loyal, battle-hardened army at his back, he simply took control. His first act was of supreme, contemptuous tyranny. He stormed into the palace, found the terrified 13-year-old Emperor Shao, and declared him unfit to rule. He deposed him and installed an even younger, more controllable puppet in his place, the 8-year-old Liu She, who would be known to history as the tragic final Han Emperor, Emperor Xian. The former emperor, Liu Bian, was forced to drink poison. Dong Zhuo, a man from the rugged frontier, was now the undisputed master of China's glittering capital. He declared himself chancellor and ruled by pure terror. He executed anyone who showed the slightest dissent. He filled the imperial court with his own frontier ruffians who respected strength, not etiquette. But his true power was guaranteed by a single human weapon. During his conquest of the capital, he had encountered the most feared warrior in China, Lu Bu. Lu Bu, a man of legendary martial prowess but fickle loyalty, had just assassinated his own master to join Dong Zhuo. Dong Zhuo, seeing a reflection of his own ruthless ambition, adopted the younger warrior as his own. Together, they were unstoppable. Dong Zhuo, the political monster, and Lu Bu, the invincible general. The aristocrats in the capital were horrified. One of these men was Cao Cao, a clever and ambitious commander. Cao Cao saw that the Han was finished if no one acted. In a famous, though perhaps romanticized, act of defiance, Cao Cao took up a precious 7-jeweled dagger, intending to assassinate the tyrant himself. But Dong Zhuo's paranoia saved him. He saw the flicker of murderous intent in a reflection, and Cao Cao was forced to abandon the attempt, presenting the dagger as merely a gift before fleeing the capital for his life. Having escaped, Cao Cao did something that would change history. He issued a forged imperial edict, a call to arms in the puppet emperor's name. He sent it to every governor and noble in the land, calling on them to form a great alliance, to march on Luoyang, and to destroy the tyrant Dong Zhuo. The call was answered. From across the fractured empire, the warlords gathered. The most prestigious and powerful of them, the aristocratic Yuan Shao, was elected as the coalition's leader. His ambitious and jealous half-brother, Yuan Shu, brought his own army. From the south came the fierce tiger, Sun Zhen, and among them, a low-ranking magistrate named Cao Cao, the man who had started it all. They were the Grand Coalition, an army of hundreds of thousands, united by a common cause, but dangerously divided by their own private ambitions.
For all its grand numbers, the coalition was a patchwork of mistrust. The newly elected leader, Yuan Shao, was a man of great prestige, but little action. He and many of the other northern warlords were content to camp their massive armies far from the capital, preserve their strength, and let others do the dangerous work. But one man in the alliance was not built for waiting. That man was Sun Jian, the tiger of Jiangdong. He was a true warrior, hardened by campaigns against pirates and rebels in the south. He was a man of action, loyalty, and ferocious courage. Believing in the coalition's purpose, he volunteered his own army to act as the vanguard, the tip of the spear. He pushed his army forward, far ahead of the other warlords, marching straight for Luoyang. But his aggression was met with betrayal from within the coalition itself. The ambitious Yuan Shu, jealous of Sun Jian's prowess and worried about him gaining too much glory, intentionally withheld food and supplies from his army. Starving and overextended, Sun Jian's forces were ambushed by Dong Zhuo's general, Shu Rong. The attack was a disaster. Sun Jian's army was scattered, and he barely escaped with his own life, his trusted general Zhu Mao killed while wearing Sun Jian's own red cloak to draw the enemy away. Sun Jian was defeated, but not broken. He retreated, gathered his scattered men, and, with sheer force of will, marched forward once more. Dong Zhuo, hearing that the tiger was back, sent his main field army, led by the general Hua Sheng, to stop him for good. This time, Sun Jian was ready. At the Battle of Yongren, he met the tyrant's army in open combat. He divided his forces, sending one part on a wide flanking maneuver, while he led the main attack. The battle was fierce, but Sun Jian's southern veterans were superior. They broke the frontier army, crushing them completely and taking the head of their general. The Battle of Yongren was a massive, stunning victory. It was the first real defeat for Dong Zhuo's forces. It shattered the myth of their invincibility and sent a shockwave of terror through Dong Zhuo's court. Sun Jian, the tiger of Jiangdong, had proven that the tyrant could bleed.
Emboldened by Sun Jian's victory, the entire coalition army now advanced, pushing towards the two great choke points that guarded the capital, Xishui Pass and Hulao Gate. The Romance of the Three Kingdoms tells us that at Sishui Pass, the coalition was held at bay by the general Hua Zhong, who had not yet been defeated by Sun Jian in this version of the story. One by one, the coalition's champions rode out to challenge him, and one by one, they were cut down. The alliance was humiliated, their morale crumbling. The leader, Yuan Shao, lamented that his own best generals were not yet present. It was then that a warrior stepped forward from the back ranks. He was a man of immense height, with a magnificent long beard and a face the color of dark wine. His name was Guan Yu. He was a mere captain, serving in the tiny volunteer force of his sworn brother, Liu Bei. He offered to go and fight the seemingly invincible Hua Zhong. The aristocrats in the tent laughed. How could a low-ranking unknown warrior succeed where their best had failed? But Cao Cao, recognizing something in the man, supported him. He poured a cup of warm wine and offered it to Guan Yu. "I will be back in a moment," Guan Yu said. "The wine can wait." He rode out, his green dragon crescent blade in hand. The warlords in the tent waited. Minutes later, Guan Yu rode back and tossed the severed head of Hua Zhong at their feet. Cao Cao picked up the cup of wine. It was still warm. Whether this legendary duel truly happened as told or was later romanticized by storytellers, it captured the spirit of the age, a time when warriors became myths and myths became history. With Sishui Pass broken, the coalition advanced to the final, most formidable defense, Hulao Gate. And it was here, as we saw in our opening, that Dong Zhuo unleashed his ultimate weapon. Lu Bu, the god of war, rode out. His horse, the legendary Red Hair, was said to be the fastest in the land. He was magnificent and terrifying. He challenged the entire coalition. A first champion rode out and was killed in 3 strokes, a second killed in 5. The entire allied army was held in check by this single warrior. Then, a roar of pure rage erupted from the back ranks. It was the third sworn brother, the ferocious Zhang Fei. "You faithless, dishonorable slave," he bellowed, charging forward on his own black horse. The two met in a whirlwind of steel, a pure contest of brutal, superhuman force. Guan Yu, seeing his brother locked in the fight, charged in, his massive blade cutting down at Lu Bu. Now it was 2 against 1. Lu Bu, the greatest warrior in China, smiled and held his own against both of them. Finally, Liu Bei, the eldest brother, drew his twin swords and charged in, completing the trio. It was 3 heroes against 1 demon. Steel met steel, and for the first time, the god of war gave ground. Lu Bu saw an opening, feigned an attack at Liu Bei, and wheeled his horse around, retreating back to the safety of Hulao Gate. The brothers did not pursue. They had done the impossible. The battle was a moral victory, and the gate was now broken. The road to the capital was finally open.
In Luoyang, Dong Zhuo was in a full-blown panic. His greatest general was dead. His ultimate weapon, Lu Bu, had been matched and forced to retreat. The coalition, which he had dismissed as a disorganized rabble, was now at his doorstep. He made an apocalyptic decision. It was a move of such monstrous, nihilistic spite that it would be remembered for all time. If he could not have the capital, no one would. He ordered the entire 400-year-old imperial city of Luoyang to be burned to the ground. This was not a simple act of war. It was the murder of a civilization. Dong Zhuo's soldiers went from house to house with torches, setting the magnificent wooden palaces, temples, and libraries ablaze. Worse, he ordered his men, including Lu Bu, to plunder the ancient tombs of the former Han emperors, stealing centuries of accumulated treasure to fund his army. And the people, the millions of citizens who lived in Luoyang, were not spared. They were rounded up at spear point and forced to march west, a massive, tragic refugee column, prodded along by his brutal soldiers. Anyone who fell behind was killed. The road from Luoyang to the new capital, the old western stronghold of Chang'an, became a 200-mile trail of tears, bodies, and despair. Dong Zhuo had destroyed the heart of the empire to save his own skin. Days later, the vanguard of the coalition, led by Sun Jian, arrived at the capital. But they did not find a city to liberate. They found a smoldering, hellish ruin, a silent, empty landscape dotted with skeletons, as Cao Cao would write. The victory was hollow. They had won nothing but ashes. As Sun Jian's troops worked to put out the remaining fires and give a mass burial to the dead, one of his soldiers noticed a strange, multicolored light shimmering from the bottom of a palace well. He reported it to Sun Jian, who ordered the well to be dragged. They pulled up the body of a court lady who had leapt to her death to escape the fires. Tied around her waist in a silk purse was the most sacred object in China, the imperial seal of the Han Dynasty. This was the symbol of the mandate of heaven, the very seal of the emperor which had been lost during the eunuch massacre. Sun Jian, a man of great ambition, recognized what he held. He saw it as a sign from heaven that he, not Yuan Shao, was the one destined to rule. He immediately hid the seal from the other warlords, a decision that would prove fatal.
The coalition was now camped in the ruins of Luoyang. Their leader, Yuan Shao, and most of the other warlords did nothing. They saw the tyrant gone and their primary mission as complete. They were content to bicker over titles and power. But one man was furious, Cao Cao. He stood before the other warlords, his voice filled with contempt. "You all gathered for a righteous cause," he argued, "but now you do nothing. Dong Zhuo is weak. He is on the run, burdened by 1,000,000 refugees. His army is demoralized. If we strike now, we can end him and rescue the emperor. This is the moment to win the empire." The other warlords, wary of losing their own armies in a difficult pursuit, made excuses and refused. Cao Cao, utterly disgusted, turned his back on them. "You provincial lords are not worthy of planning with," he spat. He then took his own small private army of 10,000 men and set off alone in a desperate pursuit of Dong Zhuo. It was a brave and righteous act. It was also a foolish one. Dong Zhuo's generals were veterans of the frontier. They were not fools. They had been waiting for just such a move. At Qingyang, they set a perfect ambush. Cao Cao's overextended, exhausted force marched straight into a trap. The battle was a massacre. Cao Cao's army was annihilated. He was hit by an arrow and his horse was killed from under him. He was on foot, wounded, and about to be captured by the enemy. At that moment, his loyal cousin, Cao Hong, rode up, dismounted, and offered his own horse. He refused. Cao Hong, in a line that would become famous, shoved him onto the horse, shouting, "The world can do without me, but it cannot do without you." Cao Hong fought on foot, allowing Cao Cao to escape. Cao Cao returned to the coalition camp a few days later, a broken man with only a few hundred survivors. He had learned a bitter, formative lesson. His allies were not his friends, and righteousness alone would not win a war.
Cao Cao's defeat was the final nail in the coalition's coffin. It proved that individual action was suicidal and that the alliance as a whole had no will to fight. The warlords were no longer focused on Dong Zhuo, who was now safe behind the mountains in his new capital. They were focused on each other. The imperial seal was the flashpoint. Rumors began to spread that Sun Jian had found it. The ambitious leader of the alliance, Yuan Shao, demanded he hand it over. Sun Jian, with a straight face, swore a false oath. "If I have the seal, may I die a violent death." Yuan Shao, not believing him, detained him, but Sun Jian eventually managed to escape, taking the seal with him and retreating south with his entire army. The two half-brothers, Yuan Shao and Yuan Shu, who were already deep rivals, now had a new reason to hate each other. Yuan Shu, furious that Sun Jian, who nominally his subordinate, had betrayed him, formed a new alliance to attack him. The Grand Coalition, which had begun just a year earlier with such high and righteous ideals, formally dissolved. It had not been defeated by Dong Zhuo, it had collapsed under the weight of its own greed, ambition, and mistrust. The warlords were no longer focused on Dong Zhuo, who was now safe behind the mountains in his new capital. They were focused on each other.
The coalition had failed to kill Dong Zhuo, but his own tyranny did. We now follow him to the new capital of Chang'an. Safe from his enemies, his rule became even more brutal and paranoid. He built a massive, opulent fortress for himself outside the city, the Mei Wu, supposedly to protect him, and filled it with the treasures he had stolen from Liu Yong and thousands of concubines. He murdered officials at banquets for his own amusement. He had alienated everyone, except for his invincible enforcer, Lu Bu. But he had one weakness, his arrogance, and in his court was a loyal Han Dynasty named Wang Yong, who saw that weakness and devised a plan. He would not use an army to kill the tyrant. He would use a single, beautiful woman. This woman, the likely fictional but legendary Diao Chan, was raised by Wang Yun as his own daughter. She was a brilliant and patriotic woman who agreed to be the weapon in his honey trap plot. First, Wang Yun secretly promised the beautiful Diao Chan to Lu Bu. The warrior, who had never known such grace, fell in love with her. Then, just days later, Wang Yun held a grand feast for Dong Zhuo and formally gifted Diao Chan to the tyrant. Dong Zhuo, delighted, immediately took her as his own concubine. Lu Bu was consumed by a burning, jealous rage. Diao Chan, a master of intrigue, masterfully played both men. She would secretly meet with Lu Bu, weeping, telling him that she loved only him, but that Dong Zhuo had forced himself on her. Then she would tell Dong Zhuo that Lu Bu was harassing her, inflaming the tyrant's possessive paranoia. The tension built until one day, Lu Bu snuck into the palace to see her, and Dong Zhuo found them. The tyrant, in a fit of rage, hurled a halberd at his own adopted son, who barely escaped. The bond between them was broken. Lu Bu, driven by love and a desire for revenge, secretly met with Wang Yun and agreed to join the assassination plot. The climax came soon after. Wang Yun lured Dong Zhuo to the palace with the false story that the emperor was about to abdicate the throne to him. Dong Zhuo, believing he was about to become emperor himself, arrived in his grand carriage, but as he passed the gates, Wang Yun's hidden soldiers attacked. He called out for his protector. "Where is Lu Bu?" Lu Bu stepped out from behind the throne, his face a mask of cold fury. "I have an imperial edict to slay the traitor," he shouted. He then plunged his halberd deep into Dong Zhuo's chest. The tyrant of China,
The man who had burned a capital and defied an empire was dead.
The tyrant was dead, but in the power vacuum, his surviving generals, Lai Ju and Guo Si, rose up, slaughtered Wang Yun, and captured Chang'an for themselves, plunging the new capital back into chaos. The puppet emperor was now their pawn. The coalition was gone. The Han was a hollow shell. There was no central authority left in China. This was the true birth of the Three Kingdoms. The warlords were now unleashed to carve up the map for themselves. In the north, Yuan Shao used his prestige to consolidate a massive territory, becoming the most powerful warlord in the land. In the center, Cao Cao, having learned his lesson at Xinjiang, focused on building his own power base in Yang Province, recruiting clever advisors and tough soldiers, playing the long game. In the south, Sun Jian, the tiger, was tragically killed in a battle against a rival, fulfilling the false oath he had sworn. But his legacy and the imperial seal passed to his brilliant teenage son, Sun Ce, who would soon begin a lightning conquest of the Southlands, laying the foundation for the future state of Wu. And Liu Bei, with his two brothers, was still landless. He was a wanderer, a warrior for hire. His only assets, his two legendary brothers, and his growing reputation for righteousness.
The coalition's failure proved that the 400-year-old Han order was gone forever. Ambition had finally and completely replaced loyalty. The old rules were dead. The era of heroes, monsters, and brilliant strategists was here. The tyrant was dead, but the dragons had been unleashed. Next, we follow one of those dragons, Cao Cao, as he builds an empire from chaos and faces his first great test at Guandu.